Science is not only about mastering subjects, writing theorems, and making new findings and discoveries. Science thrives on communication. And researchers who cannot effectively explain their work to the right audience are like analog clocks in a digital age. Their brilliant discoveries remain hidden in the background. Understanding the nuances of different formats such as research papers, scientific articles, reports, and review articles is essential for effective communication. Without these skills, even the most brilliant researches go unnoticed. In this video, you're going to learn all about the different ways of communicating your ideas, thoughts, discoveries so that your work is appreciated, honored, and gets a wider audience for recognition. My name is Shaunak and you're watching this video on my channel Physics for Students. Welcome to this fresh new episode where we are going to look into all those topics, research papers, scientific articles, and you're also going to see how these papers and articles and these research things look like. So first, before we go ahead, those who have missed my earlier video which is related to this, here is a quick recap, a very quick snapshot of what we have learned in the earlier video. So if you notice in the last video, we talked a lot about what is a research paper and what are the parameters that consist of a research paper. There should be an original thinking, there should be a structured format, and what are the factors, for example, in-depth analysis, significant contribution, peer review, etc. So taking all those things, what we learned and we can summarize in the last video is that these are the factors which should be present in a research paper in order to consider that to be a valid research paper. Originality, there should be a definite method or methodology. It should contribute something in terms of the society or to the particular domain. They should have a format and there should be an in-depth analysis and it should be properly peer reviewed. We also learned in the last video that what is the need and why it is important that a research paper should have a methodology. Now you see that these are all the factors and many other factors. I am putting it up in the I button. You can check. So methodology is important because there are certain factors, because it has to be reproduced, it should have its strengths and weaknesses, it should be consistent so that it can be deployed in various other domains in the similar field, it should have a critical review, and there should be a kind of a proper validation. So a methodology is very important, and in order to have a methodology, these are the reasons why a methodology should be stated clearly and should be presented in a research paper. You also learned that if the research paper does not have a methodology, what if the research paper don't have a specific methodology, then will be difficulties in replicating findings, it is difficulties in evaluation, and it would have a very limited impact. So our research methodology is very essential for considering it to be a proper research. You also learned that in case that you have different types of thought in your mind, for example something about Einstein field equations, black hole, thermodynamics, a new chemical drug formula, can you just write a research paper? And the answer is absolutely no. And the reason that if you just have a thought you cannot write a research paper is this, that there are certain questions that happens and you have to validate those questions. Has this research been done before? Are there any gaps? What is unique about your research? How does it contribute to the field? Can your findings be replicated? And have you formulated a new hypothesis or journey? Now hold on, this is not all. As you see in the last video, we covered almost 11 points, and these are the checkpoints in order to make you understand that yes, if these questions are in an affirmative tone, then you can form a research paper. So having just a thought, just a brilliant idea, you cannot make a research paper until you get all those 11 points ticked. Now this is where we paused our last video. Now you see what happens is that when you have a thought in your mind, then what happens is that it is not that you always have to generate a research report. And research report, because it is very rigorous and it should have many criteria that has to be filled up, there are many other avenues and many other ways to express your thought, and this is what we are going to explore in today's video. That is, can you express your thought through a scientific article? Can you write a scientific report? Do you have a valid case study that you can do? Can you review an article, or can you write a conference paper? So the basic idea is that it is not only that only a research report is something, or research paper is something which expresses your thoughts. You have multiple ways, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and many other ways in which you can express your thought. And in this video we are going to learn and we are going to see those examples, because those are brilliant ways to communicate your thought. The first thing that we start is this one: what is a scientific article? Coming up in the next part of the video, we will look into what is a scientific article. Now, if I go by the definition of scientific article, then it is a written document that reports original research findings and present the result in a structured format, and it should be peer reviewed, validate research, and contribute to the scientific community. Now, remember that you will always have certain overlapping factors in between a research paper, scientific articles, and various other documents. So these overlapping papers or overlapping subjects or thoughts will always be there. So once you learn any one factor, you can just replicate and you can understand all the other factors. Now, what is important over here is that reports original research findings. That means it is not original research that you're doing, but it is taking into account certain researches and it is reporting those researches with certain parameters which we are going to see. So here are just a few quick examples which you can see that these can be considered as scientific articles. Non-coding DNA and disease, atmospheric and oceanic fluid. Now, scientific articles, then scientific paper, and then a blog, sometimes they're used interchangeably. But overall, we are going to look what are the parameters which makes up a scientific article. And these two from Nature journal is, I would say, a very rigorous kind of a scientific article, but this is also a scientific article. So what are the factors that makes up a scientific article? First one is what is called, it should have a structured format, and we call it as IMRAD. That means introduction, methods, results, and discussion. So all this should be present in a scientific article, same as scientific research paper. It should be have some originality, I mean to say, either in terms of the research findings or interpreting the data or giving a new way of thinking things. There should be some amount of contribution. Now, this is something which is called a natural language or a neutrality. So the language should be unbiased, because it would just focus on the facts of the researches which are done, and it should just bring up, rather than giving an opinion or speculation. That becomes a review, which we will come later. And it should be definitely evidence based, because scientific articles are citing those researches, so you have to cite those tables, figures, and statistics. And there should be enough amount of citations and references are also important in research paper as well as in scientific article. Now, when I talk about these factors, I mean to say these are overall what makes up a scientific article. There are certain factors which you are now going to see which are common, and we will look up later, but these are common in many scientific articles, journals, papers, etc. Let us look into that quickly. First is that a scientific article should have a title. And a title is nothing but a concise statement summarizing the main topic or findings of the research. Then it should have an abstract. It is a brief summary of the research, including its purpose, methods, results, and conclusion. It should start with an introduction, a detailed description of the research design, procedures, and techniques used to collect and analyze data. It should have a methodology or methods, a detailed description of the research design procedures. It should have results, a presentation of the findings of study, often including graphs and tables, discussion and interpretation of the results, their implication and how they exist. And there should be certain references, a list of sources cited in the research paper, followed by an appendix, which is supplementary material that supports the main text, such as raw data, additional details, or extended explanations. Now, all of this, as I told you, they are common among most of the scientific writings, research paper, but there is a difference. Now, we understand that what is a scientific article and what constitutes of a scientific article, and these are the components which makes up a scientific article. Now we come to the next question, that why at all you should write a scientific article. Just as we sometimes do mathematics without doing the reason, so we should not do that. So why don't we know the reason that why we are writing a scientific article rather just writing it? So why should you write a scientific article? Here are a few points which should be clear, so that when you get a thought in your mind, you should not have any confusion. So as I told you that when you have a great thought in your mind and you are a little bit confused, you're thinking what to do. So in order not to think or get confused, the first thing is that if you want to communicate and communicate the research finding, to share new knowledge, then you should write a scientific article. The second point is that if you want to write about advancement of science and technology and innovation in terms of space science, physics, chemistry, biology, whatever, then definitely you should write a scientific article. Third is that if you want to provide certain application and have a social impact, because as I told you, scientific articles and researches should have some kind of a social impact. So they can describe the discoveries that have the potential to improve health of technology, or to understand this environment. Then if you want that, then definitely you are in the right position to write a scientific article. The next thing which comes is that if you want to build credibility and reputation. This is very important, because in order to establish your reputation, a great scientific article sometimes help. For example, a physicist consistently publishes high quality research articles in top tier, which are frequently cited by other researchers. And this is what we mean by citations. I am not going about H index, etc. I will come to that later. How many people have read it? Throughout the year or in the months, how many people have cited it? So this actually builds up the credibility. In ResearchGate and in other areas like IOP, you will see that there are a lot of citations which happen. More the citation, it builds more about the credibility. So definitely it is. If you want to make an advancement in terms of academic and professional, then you have to do that, because as a doctoral student, for example, you publish several papers from the dissertation research. These publications help you to secure a doctoral position and maybe later as a faculty or a professor in a university. If you want to secure funding, yes, you can publish a scientific article, because to demonstrate the significance and impact of research, it is required. So for example, a neuroscientist publishes a groundbreaking research on a potential treatment of Alzheimer's disease, and this can help them secure a substantial grant from a funding agency. So why will the agency will give you a fund? How will you secure that fund? In order to do that, you need to write a scientific article. And the next and the last but not the least point is that if you want it obviously for educational purpose. For example, I am making this video for educational purpose. So to educate students, for example, an environment scientist writes a review article. The article serves as a valuable source for students and other researchers, definitely. And most of the websites and blogs, etc., where they write scientific articles, the sole purpose is educational purpose. So from here, what we can say is that scientific articles are written to share original research findings. However, it is not an original research. They contribute definitely to the scientific knowledge by presenting data, interpretation, and following a rigorous and verifiable approach to share. So from here, what we can say in total is that it is basically meant for sharing new research. Second point is that definitely it follows a rigorous process of peer review, etc. And it is adding to the scientific record. Now, what do I mean by adding? So when you're writing a scientific article, you are basically archiving whatever your thought is in your mind, whatever the researchers have done, and it actually helps a lot. So archiving is definitely an important part. So it adds to the scientific record. Now, you saw that there are many points which comes more or less overlapping, as I told you. So the question comes is that does not this looks to be a same like a research paper? But it is not that a research paper, because it tells that it is a scientific article. So in the next part of the video, we are going to look about the subtle differences between a scientific article and what is called a research paper. And this is important to understand so that you don't overlap factors, otherwise you won't be able to make either a scientific article and a research paper. So I will take 3 points. First is that I'm going to feature that. Featuring means what is the purpose. So scientific particles basic purpose is to report new research findings, whereas research paper provides a detailed analysis or review of a specific topic. Structure, obviously it has the standardized structures like IMRAD, and this is also more or less the same, but it is flexible, maybe literature review, etc. Publication, this is published in scientific journals, and this can be published in journals, conference, or standalone documents. The length, obviously scientific articles is much shorter because it is meant for the general public or meant to just give you a view of our original research, and this can be longer. In our university, I think that it is around 6,000 or 5,000 words. So it is quite huge. Another thing is that the target audience, because scientific article is meant basically for scientists. So primarily research is in the same field. Now this can be broader because research paper may include research students or even a general public, so that they can, they can understand. So if you're not being able to understand a research paper, I would suggest go to the scientific article part, because the language is much easier. This undergoes a rigorous peer review, but this is partly true. May or may not undergo peer review, but in order to become a proper research paper, legitimate research paper, it has to undergo peer review. But there are many articles, many research papers on the internet that is not peer reviewed. So I just thought to keep you in the loop. So the basic idea of giving this comparison is that you understand the purpose is to report this, and this is original. The structure is more or less the same, and the length is much higher, and the target audience is a broader audience for research paper, and this is particularly for the same field. So now the question that comes in your mind is that where will you publish? And regarding whatever the findings that you have got, let us look into the next part of the video. Where are you going to publish your research? Coming up next. So suppose that you have got make a scientific discovery, or you have developed a theorem or anything of that sort. So the question is that where will you publish? This is a big question many students have. The first thing that you have to know that you cannot just discover anything or a kind of a discovery waking up one fine morning. It just cannot be done. The reason is that for that specific discovery or invention, you must have written 10, 20, 50, 100 papers in earlier. So that means all those papers finally culminate to one finding or discovery. So the point that you have to understand is that you cannot wake up in a fine morning and have a discovery and publish in a research paper or article. You have to publish many papers prior to that, get it reviewed, and then understand that it is finally ending into one paper which actually shows your finding. So once it is peer reviewed and validated, it will be considered, and that only happens through research paper. So I hope you got the answer to the question. It is not scientific article or any other article. It is only going to come through research paper, because prior to your discovery, invention, whatsoever, you must have published many other papers in order to validate, support, or refute them, and it happens only through research paper. Now here I am going to give you a basic overview citing some famous research papers so that you can understand. So here is an overview between research paper and what is called a scientific article. Now you see, this is I have taken for arxiv.org. So the basic idea is that you have got an introduction, an abstract, and you don't see these diagrams are all taken. So what I'm trying to say is that a research paper, as you can see, communicates the findings of scientific investigations or scholarly inquiry, presenting new knowledge, insights, or solutions to a specific problem. It actually systematically details the research questions, context, methodology, results, and interpretation, ensuring that other scholars can replicate the study or findings. The paper includes visual aids, as you can see right on the screen, charts, figures, and tables to illustrate, highlight key points, making complex information more accessible. And the tone of a research paper is formal, objective, and precise, using technical language and avoiding colloquial expressions to maintain clarity and professionalism. Whereas on the other hand, if I come to an article which I have taken from quantamagazine.org, I forget the website. So here you can see that an article, whether it is scientific journal or popular media, this communicates. You can see this part, this one. You can see the language, summary and conclusion, and how technical it is written. You can just pause the video and go through it. On the other hand, you just read through this part. This is quite informal. So the idea is to communicate to specific information or insights of a particular topic, aiming to inform, persuade, or engage its audience. So it synthesizes research findings, expert opinions, or news events, often incorporating charts, figures, and data to support its arguments and make complex information more digestible. That means it is much more easier. The tone and language of an article can vary significantly depending on its intended audience. In academic or professional contents, the tone is formal, objective, and precise, and technical jargon appropriate for experts in the field. So in context articles for general audience, it is more accessible. Conversation tone is simplified and avoiding overly technical language. So this clears up our idea, comparison, and the definition and understanding what is a scientific article and what is a scientific or a research report. Now what we come next is that what is basically called is a scientific report. Well, this is again something a little bit different. I'm going to show you that. If I go by the definition, you see it is again more or less same. So that is why those subtle differences are important. That details the process, progress, or results of scientific investigation. That means it aims to communicate, isn't it? So what from this definition, what we can say is that a scientific report should be objective and accurate. So the language is formal and unbiased, focusing mostly on presenting facts. We will see that. So it mostly focuses on presenting facts, data, and observation without speculation or personal opinion. Personal opinion, I think you can provide it, yes, in scientific article. From this definition, we can also understand that it has a rigorous methodology. That means it has to analyze data, collect the data, describe it in detail for evaluation, or maybe it is for replication of other. This definition also says that it is more or less a data-driven evidence. That means findings are represented by robust data, tables, lot of statistics, figures, etc. What we found is that a scientific report has a limited background. That means unlike some academic papers, scientific reports assume a basic understanding of the scientific field. If you take an analogy, if you go to the doctor and they give you a scientific report, I pray to God that you don't have to go to the doctor and stay healthy and fresh. So when you read a kind of a health report or a diagnostic report, you really do not understand. Why? Because of the limited background information. And this is tailor-made because scientific reports are not like articles, or maybe even like research paper. It can get even technical than a research paper because including researchers within the same field, funding agencies, etc. And the emphasis, remember, it is mostly on methodology, data, and analysis. It has got a very rigorous process. It undergoes evaluation, analyzing the data, and these unique elements ensure that scientific reports contribute to a reliable and verifiable body of knowledge. So this is what we understand, that these are the components, but still there is one question, that what makes a scientific report? I mean to say, don't take it that this is a duplicate, but this is what actually makes a scientific report. That means what are the components that makes a scientific report coming up into the next part of our video. So first is that documents the details of specific research. Then it is targeting a specific person or group, and it provides a comprehensive record of the research which includes methodology, analysis, and conclusion. Scientific report is meant for what we called sharing findings. So the idea is that they communicate the results of a scientific research to a specific audience, and this could be broader scientific community in a particular field which provides funding agencies, etc. Scientific report also facilitates collaboration. And collaboration means that a scientific report would enable other researchers to understand the work, etc. And a scientific report, you will see when I will show you, it demonstrates the progress. That means they are used to report on the progress of ongoing research projects, especially when seeking funding. So these are the components. Remember what we saw earlier, what is called what is a scientific report, the definition. But what are the building structures? This is the one. We also know that it is actually for evaluation and verification, because scientific reports will go through a strict process of review process, and other scientists will evaluate the research methodology, etc. So in essence, what we can say is that scientific report actually acts as a bridge between researchers and their findings, ensuring proper communication, documentation, and ultimately the advancement of a scientific knowledge. So this is, I mean to say, this is a summary what makes a scientific report unique. Now let me show you what actually a scientific report looks like. I have taken some citations. So this is what is called a scientific report, a macroeconomic report on Latin America and the Caribbean. So just go through this part. You don't have to actually sit down and evaluate those. So this is the gross domestic product, and this is the Latin American part. Then it shows again the exchange rate, etc. Then the Latin American consumer price, etc. And there you see it actually draws a kind of a conclusion that during the first quarter 2020 the monetary rate, and all you can see over here are so much amount of data, figures, percentages. So that is actually what a report actually looks like. Now if you come to the next part of the report, I have highlighted this. So when it draws a conclusion, you see it writes that there are 4 conclusions to be drawn from the favorable trend in employment, this. So you can understand what it is. And then it even includes the macroeconomic policy, that is fiscal revenue grew but at a slower rate, expenditure patterns were uneven. That means it is reporting. So the language is that of reporting. What it is telling fiscal revenue grew but at a slower rate, expenditure patterns were uneven, and this year has this amount. So it is all about data, analysis, statistics, percentage, and so on. Now coming from here, I would like to show you another report from a very famous journal. This is the Elsevier. Before I go ahead into this, let me explain what this actually report is all about. Now this report says that a 43-year-old woman with a history of COVID-19 was re-hospitalized due to fever and cough, showing new lung consolidations on CT scans. She was initially diagnosed with a COVID-19 pneumonia. She showed improvement but later developments of a fever again with new consolidations. Genomic analysis indicate a different viral strain from the initial infection, and repeated, I would say, antibody tests revealed no antibody production, leading to a diagnosis of immunodeficiency. Treatment with immunoglobulins and antibody preparations led to full recovery. Now what it says at the last is that this case highlights the importance of repeated antibody measurements in diagnosing primary immunodeficiency in patients with severe or recurrent COVID-19. So this is the report, and as you can understand that it clearly tells it. So first you see that repeated measurement for antibody, then it includes an introduction, then there is a case presentation, and then there is a discussion. So this is actually what it tells, and as I told you that finally it comes to the conclusion that antibody measurements in diagnosing primary immunodeficiency patients with severe and recurrent COVID-19. We come to another, okay, so here is the conclusion. You can see early reinfection and recurrent severe clinical episode were suggestive of immunological deficiency, and measuring antibody production of the S and N antibodies of COVID-19 was helpful in diagnosing primary immunodeficiency. And here is a WHO and all those huge references. So it shows that it was helpful in diagnosing primary deficiency. This is the conclusion, and this was how it is written, the introduction, etc. So this is how actually a report, the report looks like, and these are the DOI.org and a huge amount of references. We come to another report which is very interesting to note, and this is actually, I will tell you just in short so that you can understand the conclusion. A 30-year-old woman with a 3 prior C-section experienced some kind of a vaginal bleeding at 13 weeks. Ultrasound suggested a molar pregnancy, abnormal tissue growth. Planned suction curettage to remove the tissue resulted in severe bleeding. An emergency hysterectomy was performed to stop the bleeding. Pathology revealed placenta increta, not a molar pregnancy. So what the article discusses is the rarity of placenta increta in the first trimester, and emphasizes considering it cases of unexpected bleedings, especially for women with prior C-sections. And see why I have underlined the conclusion. This could help again it comes that how, as I was telling, how it could help the future researchers. This could help clinicians set a plan in motion before the situation becomes dire. Significant morbidity can be reduced by preempting an emergency. So it is clear, the report is very clear. Significant morbidity, how you can reduce by preempting an emergency, and this could help clinicians to set a plan in motion before the situation becomes dire, because pathology reveal placenta increta and it is not a molar pregnancy, because the emergency hysterectomy was performed and the planned section curettage removed the tissue, resulted in severe bleeding. So this is how a report looks like, and this is how the conclusion is drawn. Now again, as I told you, there are certain very overlapping factors between a scientific report and what we learned earlier is a scientific article. Let us quickly look into that. I'm sure you're going to like that. So scientific report is a document and present an original research, and this is to communicate findings to the scientific community. Audience, again, it could be researchers, scientists. Article is much broader, broader scientific community. Details, it is very detailed. And even it includes a lot of experimental data, and this is more on key findings and what is the significance, etc. So that gives you a clear idea what is called a scientific report and a scientific article. You have seen now how the scientific article looks like. I'm giving those links in the description. They are highly technical, I mean to say biological and physiological reports. If you like, if you want, you can go ahead and look right that. Now there is something which is called a review article. Let us look into the next part of the video. So review article, sometimes it may also be called as a literature review. Don't get confused. So review article, literature review more or less are used interchangeably. It is a survey of previously published research report, and it should give an overview of current thinking. So number one is that don't get confused that it can also be called a literature review. Second is that it is a survey of previously published research on a topic. So it is not a report, not an original report. It is giving you a review of the previous research, and it gives an overview of current thinking. That means overall I can review those things. So I mean to say, what is the role? So the role is that it gives an overview. So as we we do those movie reviews and the book reviews, which I have also done. So it gives an overall idea, and often it specifies the problems and issues and analyzes, and then you get kinds of a balanced perspective. But some of the reviews can be very biased. Synthesis and integration, because beyond summary, it synthesizes, integrates, and it can take references and identify patterns and potential inconsistencies. So there can be a lot of things. Most important, a review article is giving a critical analysis. So I mean to say weaknesses, strengths, etc. And it discusses the significance. Significance means that whatever broader implications it has got, what are the gaps are there, what could be the future suggestion, what could be the future ways of correcting those gaps, all those things. And it is extensively extensive references, because it gives to this, that, huge amount of articles, etc. can be it can be given. Now taking all those points, I mean to say starting from here, that it gives an overview, synthesis, integration, and then coming to those parts, you might have a question that I understand, but how does it help the researchers? I mean to say, if we do a kind of a review of an article, scientific article, how does it help the researchers? Definitely it does. First of all, it saves a lot of time. Don't you go through a movie review or a book review or a product review before purchasing or going for the movie? Definitely you do. So researchers, instead of hunting through several websites and blogs and articles, it saves the time. And most importantly, it identifies the trend, because review articles is something which actually speaks of the current trend of the market, where it is going. So you can understand from that. And it evaluates the quality, because it more or less gives the strengths and weakness of anything. So a quality evaluation is also being done. So this is what is called called a review article. It definitely helps the researchers a lot. Next we come to what is known as a case study. Coming up in the next part of the video, I will show you, demonstrate you with very exciting examples of what is a case study. Now by definition, a case study is basically an in-depth analysis of a particular instance. It can be an event, individual, or a group. And most importantly, that unlike broader surveys or experiments, it focuses only on one subject. That means one particular case, and it provides a qualitative and quantitative data. That means it obviously contributes to a broader knowledge of scientific discipline, not going into much broader and generic way, but focusing intensely on one subject. So how does it help? Obviously, everything should come with a help, with a need. The first is that definitely it helps a lot in education. Because we use a lot of case studies in physics, mathematics, biology, chemistry, etc. So it gives a very deep critical thinking and helps in problem solving and many other areas. And research and development, very much yes, because researchers use case studies to explore complex phenomena, and they can even get insights into why this has happened, why this case has happened, and in case of broader studies this might be missed. So it actually gives a lot of help in research and development. What comes important is that it actually gives a lot of real world content, because controlled experiments and case studies, it provides a single instance, and this single instance helps us to ask fundamental questions like how and why and all those things. So you really come to know a lot. And it also delves deep into research question, because case studies might reveal an instance or a situation that prompts for further researches, and this can be very good. So case study is indeed a very important point to consider the new research questions. Now remember, one thing is also important, that case studies typically do not provide generalizable findings applicable to a large population. It actually, however, the strength lies in offering a comprehensive understanding of a specific situation and paving the way for future research. That it is not generalizable, but it is on a specific, otherwise why it will show, why it will be considered as a case study. Now comes the question that can we see some sample case study. Now in this case I have generated a hypothetical case study. I'll just like to show you. So here is something which is called a Higgs boson discovery, which we all know happened a year back. So we first provide a background, and there's an objective, and you see how we write the methodology. For example, mathematical model, then we write the predictions based on the standard model, and so on. So the methodology can be theoretical framework, then we come to the experimental setup, for example Large Hadron Collider, data collection, etc. Then it comes to what are called the results and what is the impact. So this is this is what comprises of a case study, but it is not always the same. And then it shows a conclusion. So discovery of the Higgs boson exemplifies the interplay between physics and mathematics, and you can understand that. Now what also made me surprised is that here is a beautiful website which you can check in, and this is a typical example which you can cite while using case studies from history of physics, and it is called Institute of Physics IOP. And you can use those case studies in order to teach your students, or you yourself can learn. Say for example Galileo's pendulum, that this is a typical case study which you can take up and go for further studies. Henri Becquerel discoveries of radioactivity, how, where, when, what are the experimental setup, this is a case study. Oyster's electric current and magnetism, William Herschel's and the discovery of infrared radiation. All these are quite interesting, and these are also great case studies, and you can study, you can make your students or your children learn from those case studies. I was truly mesmerized to come up and stumble upon this particular website. Now there is something which is, not very I won't say uncommon, but not very often read, that is called a conference paper. And as you can understand from this part of the definition, what is a conference paper? That it is a formal document, and it is basically for a specific gathering, that is a scientific conference. So what are the factors that makes up? It actually helps you to share your finding and research, because conference papers are a platform to present your original study for a targeted audience, obviously where you are going. And it is a good platform to know your valuable feedback, because in a conference, if you're presenting it, there will be criticism, and this feedback can become very crucial in refining and redefining your research before submitting to a peer review or a journal. And it would definitely build connections with your colleagues, because you get a chance to network with other people, other scholars and researchers in your field. Now, one thing which I was frankly speaking unable to understand is what is called a white paper. And if you know what is a white paper, I would like to know from you. Please put it up in the comment box in Physics for Students this video. What is a white paper? I really cannot understand what it is. So that's all for today's video, and thank you very much for watching, taking up time, because we dealt with a lot of things. And please do subscribe to my channel Physics for Students, hit on the bell icon and click on all for all the notification from Physics for Students. You can write to my email ID, and you can like and subscribe to my other channel, General Relativity Explained, where I put up exclusive videos on Einstein's general theory of relativity. You can follow me on my Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram and Twitter account. That's all for today's video, but this series is going to continue, and don't miss the 30th of June's podcast with Dr. Geetanjali Sethi on general relativity and cosmology, coming up right on this channel sharp at 8 p.m. Indian Standard Time. See you there, and please do not forget to put up comment on this particular video. Thank you very much.